Record. So I'm going to welcome everybody. This is my first official test. Everything's set up the way I'm going to have it and done the way I'll do a live stream. So we have everything set up and ready to go with the exception of just going live. So this really is just a test. What my hopes and plans to do will be to sit down pretty regularly, weekly, maybe every couple weeks. We'll see how it goes. We'll see what the reception is, but I'm just going to sit down and tie. We'll have extra computer or tablet or something set up so we can take questions and we'll talk about tying. So I'm going to welcome everybody to this video. As we go through this tonight, if you like what we're doing here, put some comments down below. If you have any questions of what I'm doing, go ahead and add those as well. Always subscribe so you can be updated on any time that we have something scheduled. And let's get into it. And the vise today, I have a 5/8 flat. I'm not doing anything special tonight. I'm tying for filling my inventory boxes. So right now I got to tie some olive and white. So I have a 5/8 flat head. Just going to lock my thread on. And just like normal, I walk it back about a third of the way, just out of habit. I probably go a little bit farther than I need to, but it's a habit I've had since I was just a kid. I take my pinch and my barber scissors. I've had some nicer weather today, so the hair isn't so bad. These past few days have been warmed up. I'm just stacking this by hand, taking out some of those longer fibers, placing them back in the pinch. I'm measuring this. I want the tail to be the body length past the bend of the hook. So on this vise, it's right where the silver ends. Once I'm happy with that, I can switch my grips. This left hand keeps tight. The pinch stays tight throughout the entire process. Knock it on a few wraps towards the bend of the hook, a few wraps back towards the head. This is the last of the white on this tail. It's a nice tail. This is a deer buddy of mine shot last fall. It's just a natural white. Dyed white's nice, a bleached white rather. But I like the natural hairs. Again, just kind of stacking the longer hairs back in the pinch. And there's a couple of broken tips. That was the very end of a wild deer, not one of those farm-raised ones. Just looking at the tips of the hairs against my left hand, just to make sure that the tips are lining up. Just lock that on. It's a nice little collar. I try to keep the collars fairly small. add my loop underneath my last wrap. A couple wraps back towards the center of the collar. A couple wraps back to the head. Pull it through and cut your tag end. So since I'm tying these to fill my boxes, technical difficulties. It's a live show, folks. Battery fell out. Alright, we're back in business. Just needed to make some room on my spinning rack here. But of course, I don't usually have a light in this corner of the room. I've been tying a bunch of stingers. I think everyone's noticed that last few videos I've done. So my rack is just filled with the stinger bodies, the jigs with the stingers already on them, and just waiting to put some hair on these. But that's what I have mostly here on this spinning rack. But so as I was saying, since I'm tying these at least a dozen at a time, what we'll do is I'm just going to hang them on the rack, and then at the end, when I finish a dozen, I'll grab my lacquer-based head cement and we'll just do all the collars all at once. So here we go. I'll do another one. So as we said with the first one, this is a 5/8 flat head. And the thread I'm using today is size A. It's a round nylon thread. This is Pac Bay rod winding thread. And majority of my thread, I have a big inventory of Good Rod. But of course that's getting harder and harder to find now since they've gone out of business. So for this red, I found Pac Bay, I don't know, 6-7 years ago. And it's a color I like, and I like the spools are heavy, so that took a little getting used to, but I do like Pac Bay thread. Another good thread, if you start looking around for size A thread, is the Fuji. Another good rod wrapping thread. Danville, if you can find it. I use a lot of Danville 2/0, 3/0, 4/0. I think I got down to 6/0. Ooh, this tail I am not going to use. I wondered why this was like at the bottom of my box. I'm not sure if we can see it, but this has an awful lot of broken tips. This again was probably a wild deer. That's probably why I only did up the one side. I think I can use some of these on this side. But on this side here you can see that the tips, let's see. Turn the picture off for a second. Not sure if you can see that, how a lot of these tips are broken. That could have just been from dragging the deer out of the woods, really. Or if, you know, it's covered with mud and we go to wash it and comb them out, it breaks the tips. But I guess I can use this. I'll do a couple before I stop and get a fresh tail. So that's the thing with production tying. In terms of material, of course I always want to try to get the best materials I can, but in the same breath you kind of have to learn how to get good results with sometimes mediocre materials. Because you go through so many tails, I don't have the luxury of just picking and choosing sometimes. The end of last year, olive was a color. Olive tails were hard to get, and you kind of had to make do with tails with the tips broken off. Not the tips of the hair, so to speak, but the end of the tail itself. Or you get the ones that didn't dry flat and they actually were curled, a little bit harder to use. Ones that are cracked. But the hair is good. When I first started tying regularly, you know, I grew up tying, but when I first started tying regularly, the family was still buying bulk tails from a lot of different suppliers. I think by the, I'd probably say the end of the 90s, mid-90s maybe, and Dad stopped processing tails and feathers and dyeing them and whatnot. We would buy bulk tails from a lot of the big suppliers. Some of them are still around, you know, Barlow's and Netcraft, and at the time Wapsie. And I remember buying from Netcraft. I would buy tails by the pound instead of by the number, but I would buy tips and pieces. So, you know, it was the tails that they got that, you know, sat at the bottom of the bin and or dried out and cracked and broken, or half a tail, you know, tails break in half. So they would put them all in a big bulk bag, and I'd buy a garbage bag full, you know, 30-40 pounds of tails of one color. So it'll be interesting to see what the reception will be. I'm going to tie regardless when I start doing this live. Like I said in the beginning, this is my test with everything set up the way we're going to do it, at least to begin with, for doing a live show, doing live tying every week, maybe every 2 weeks. And of course I'm going to record everything, and we're going to post the live show anyway, also, on the YouTube. And we'll tie different things. I'm doing a lot of jigs right now because wintertime. I'm trying to fill my inventory boxes for my sales throughout the summer. But there's also certain things that I like personally. I really enjoy tying streamers, traditional streamers, not necessarily, I'm not going to compete with somebody like Kelly Galloop or some of those guys, but I am a big fan of traditional catskill flies, traditional hair wing streamers that were used. I'm in central New York State, so I'm 35 minutes from the mouth of the Beaver Kill River. So I do enjoy tying traditional flies, traditional streamers. For the Finger Lakes, and I have other videos where I kind of do a little bit of a show and tell of a fly wallet that I found of my father's after he passed, of streamers that he fished with primarily in the Finger Lakes. Big, hideous, bushy things. But they would troll with them, and lake trout would just hammer them. So doing things like that would be nice. There's a couple streamers that we've fished pretty regular, the tributaries of Cayuga Lake. And of course, the odds and ends, things like spinner blade, walleye harness with the spinner blades and things like that. So there's a lot of different things we could do. I've also been playing around lately with the airbrush. And though all my heads are epoxy paint, and more traditional in that sense, I have played around a little bit with the airbrush and some of the automotive grade paints. So if I ever get set up where that's just more, right now I'm just doing it for fun and kind of just goofing around, and I got a few guys right now that I've given jigs to I'm curious to see how well the paint holds up. If it's as durable as epoxy, minimally as durable as epoxy, then maybe I'll start airbrushing some things. Blades, jigging blades, those are pretty popular here in my area. I actually painted some up recently. I think I posted them on Instagram. Kind of a perch pattern, blade bait that I just, was just spraying. Wasn't terribly difficult, kind of a little bit of gold, a little bit of green, and then the black stripe and nose. So we'll see what comes of it. Just doing a quick check. Just doing a quick check of my board, making sure everything's copacetic. So we got the show's being recorded now as we're tying. My mic 1 is working. Picture in picture would look okay if I make sure that we're looking at the right thing. So far so good. We'll have to come up with not a theme song, I don't want to be too corny, but opening credits. I had to figure out how to do that and have it, just be at a push of a button here so it can start. Maybe a countdown timer, 10 minutes or so before the show starts. I don't think I'm showing you. I gotta show you guys how the jigs are looking. Pretty good, right? I'll just swap out this white tail. And I save these. This brown hair, natural brown, it's kind of light, but there might be a jig or a fly that you want to tie with that. So I have a bag under my desk that I keep the natural brown. And then I have a box that has 4 of the most popular colors. Tails. So this is what I'm talking about when I buy tails. Look at that. Really long hair. This hair is probably a little bit too long. It seemed like a waste putting them on these short shanked hooks, so let's see if I got something better. Wow, all these tails are super long. This is 6-inch long hair. That's a little. See, here's something that I'm talking about. When they split this tail, someone got a little sloppy with the knife and nicked the leather. There's a little bit of bone in the very end of this tail. But to me, I wouldn't package this and sell it, but to me, that's going to be good hair. There's that. So under my desk I have a box. It's got brown, black, white, and purple tails. Large bags, just because that's colors that I use constantly. All the other tails I have are in similar size bags. I just keep them in a file cabinet. I have 2 file cabinets just filled with large plastic bags filled with tails. I have another room here in the downstairs that probably has, I don't know, 3 or 4 large the large boxes you get with your copy paper. So each of those will have 3 or 4 big plastic bags filled with tails. Then I got another half dozen or so that are filled with marabou. A couple that are filled with colored feathers, mostly used for the hackle collar on the ice jigs. And then of course my boxes of like the good fly tying stuff, the expensive stuff. here's that split tail. And see, here's a whole bunch of hairs that are just cut straight across. So that was probably cut when they cut the leather. You know, they hit it with their knife or cut off the fat, because this part in the end usually is fat. And you can see this was nailed down. So I'm not even sure who did this. Usually when I get tails from guys, they'll be frozen with the bone. So I let them thaw out, and I'll bone them and salt them myself. And then one thing I didn't bother with this, usually when I get a tail out of the bag, I have an old comb in my tool cup here. I'll usually comb out the tails, just get out some of the, if there's anything in there that shouldn't be, other color fuzz and hair, and you know, and if it's a natural fresh tail, you know, it could have dead ticks in it and burrs. Didn't check the clock before we started. I think I have a, oh, if this timer on my monitor is correct, we've been at it just about a half hour. I'm having a good time tying. And right now I'm just talking to myself, so I think it would only be even a better time if, as I'm tying, there's people that are tying along and enjoying what we're doing. A little bit of conversation would be nice, not just me babbling, talking nonsense. So I'm going to finish up this dozen. Oop, if I can get this in there. So I'm going to finish up this dozen. I'm going to take a look at the video that we made tonight. And again, keep in mind that this is basically the setup that I want to do for tying live. And if you like how we're doing it here today, let me know if there's things that you want me to change or could do better. Put those ideas down in the comments as well, and I'll take a look at those. Maybe this picture-in-picture camera, maybe could be placed better. I thought maybe, you know, I could see okay. I'm a little concerned about the lamp, but every time I look at the monitor, it seems like my head is far enough away. I don't want a side shot necessarily, and I can't put it right here. I do need a lamp to tie. I guess I could do it, you know, we got so many lights here around this table that I could probably see without this lamp, but it's different, and you know, we're getting old, we're wearing reading glasses and everything. So I think that's going to be it for tonight, guys. So again, like, subscribe, comment down below, and until next time, tight lines.